In this lesson, we're going to talk about standard form of a linear equation. And this is the third form of a linear equation that we're going to talk about. So this is the formula for standard form. AX plus BY equals C. So if you see an equation in this format, then that means that the linear equation is in standard form. There are a couple stipulations you have to be aware of with standard form, and the stipulations are here in blue. It says that A, B, and C must be integers. So A and B represent coefficients of the variables x and y, and C represents our constant. And all three of those numbers have to be integers in order for this to be in standard form. Also, A, that first coefficient, must be positive. It doesn't matter if B or C are positive or negative. As long as A is positive, you're good to go. Okay, let's keep those things in mind as we work through these problems. It says determine the equation of the line in standard form. So right now you can see that we have an equation in slope-intercept form, and we want to transfer this into standard form. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to start by getting my x and my y over on the left-hand side and my constant on my right-hand side. And to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract 2/3 x from both sides. All right, well, you can see that eliminated it over on the right-hand side. And I'm going to go ahead and write negative 2/3 x first because I see in my formula the x comes first. Plus y is equal to positive 4. Now we're getting closer, but we're not fully finished here. Now we need to get rid of the fraction because remember, A, B, and C must be integers. So to get rid of the fraction here, I'm going to multiply by the denominator in that fraction. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply the entire side by 3. Now, when I multiply the whole side, it's the whole side. Also, I'm going to multiply the other side by 3 as well. Common mistake is to forget to multiply it by the y on the left side. So if I multiply the first part, I'm going to get negative 2x plus 3y is equal to 12. Now, you can see that we're getting closer, but we're not fully finished here. Notice that the a coefficient is negative. Remember, a has to be positive. So in order to make a positive, I have to multiply both sides by negative 1. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides by negative 1. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. That's going to give me 2x minus 3y equals negative 12. And there you have your equation in standard form. Now, you might be wondering, couldn't I have multiplied this entire thing by negative 3 and done both of those steps in one? Absolutely. You could have multiplied by negative 3 to eliminate the fraction and the negative all at once. I did it in 2 steps just to show you those 2 steps are different. Okay, let's try another one. This time we have an equation that's in point slope form, and we want to transfer it into standard form. Now, let's take a look here. I'm going to start by distributing my 3. So y minus 5 is equal to 3x plus 6. Now, again, I need to get my x over to the left, and I need to get my constant over to the right. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my x. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides using my literal equation skills here. Negative 3x plus y minus 5 is equal to 6. And I would recommend doing everything one step at a time to avoid mistakes. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move 5 over to the right because that's a constant. So I'm left with negative 3x plus y is equal to 11. All right, looks pretty good except for one thing. Notice that the a is negative. I need to make it positive. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply this by negative 1. So I'm going to multiply this whole side by negative 1 and this whole side by negative 1. That's going to leave me with 3x minus y, be careful with that second distribution there, equals negative 11. And there you have it. You have your equation in standard form. Now, just kind of thinking about these equations, we have to kind of think of what's the point of all this? Well, first of all, in this first one, this equation in slope-intercept form is the exact same line that I have here in standard form. It's just in a different format. Same thing with the second. This equation in point-slope form is the exact same line as this one down here in standard form. It's just written in a different form. Okay, now that we've done some transferring, let's go ahead and talk about how to graph an equation in standard form. So let's look at this, this equation, 5x minus 4y equals 20. Obviously, we're in standard form. And the most common way to graph this is to transfer it into slope-intercept form. So let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it down here. And I'm just going to use my literal equation skills to transfer this to make it look in the form y equals mx plus b. All right, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5x first. And that's going to leave me with negative 4y is equal to, and I'm going to write negative 5x first because that's going to put me into slope-intercept form, plus 20. Now, I have to get rid of the negative 4, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. Over on the left side, those negative 4's cancel out. But over on the right side, check this out. We have to use a skill that we learned in Unit 1. Remember this little skill? I think we called it the butterfly. But we're actually dividing these terms. So negative 5x divided by negative 4 is going to give us 5/4 x. And then I have to do the same thing to these other terms. Positive 20 divided by negative 4 is going to leave me with negative 5. And now that we have our equation in slope-intercept form, we can now graph it a little bit easier. I'm going to start with my y-intercept of negative 5. And I'm going to go ahead and draw my slope of 5/4. So I'm going to rise 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, I'm going to rise 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to run 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it looks like I can only plot 2 points on this particular coordinate plane. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, there is another way that you can use standard form to graph your linear equation. And let me show you how to do that. The second way we can graph an equation that's in standard form is to actually look at the intercepts of the graph. Now, let's pretend that we don't have the equation graphed over here, and let's just kind of take a look at the equation itself. So to determine the intercepts, we've actually already talked about this back in Unit 3, but we can look for the x-intercept by substituting 0 in for y, and we can find the x-intercept, the y-intercept by substituting 0 in for x. So let me show you that. I'm just going to show you right up here. So to determine the x-intercept, watch what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to substitute 0 in for y, and we're just going to solve a simple little equation here, just like this. So now we have 5x is equal to 20, and if we divide both sides by 5, we can see that that gives us x is equal to 4. This is our x-intercept on our graph, and you can actually take a look over here and see that indeed it is. And you can do the same thing for the y-intercept. Let me show you what that looks like. So we can substitute 0 in for x. That will give us negative 4y equals 20, and I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4, and that gives us y is equal to negative 5. And you can see that that's our y-intercept. So that's another way that you can actually graph an equation from standard form. That's another really kind of a nice method that you could use other than turning it into slope-intercept form, although you can do that as well. Okay, the last thing I want to mention about not only standard form, but also point slope form are these special graphs. Remember we talked about these when we talked about slope-intercept form? And if you remember correctly, the equation of this first graph is going to be x is equal to 1. And the second graph is going to be y is equal to 1. And if we were asked to put a graph like one of these into either point slope form or standard form, this would be how you would actually write the equation. So it is not in the format of the formula for either one of these equations. It's actually always going to be in this format when you're writing the equation of this type of line. That's why we call them special graphs. Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson on standard form.